Alright.
So, this will be episode 4 of DM Diary, and today I brought on my pal Logan.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And you're one of the, I don't know many dungeon masters or game masters or whatever you want to call them, but of the ones that do, you're definitely the most, experienced, at least, for your age anyway, you're still a young man. Yeah.
Even in my experience, we are a very rare breed, rare kind, if you will.
Yeah, it's funny. You would think it would be a typical game of Dungeons & Dragons takes usually about 5 people, 1 dungeon master, 4 players, but so you would think it'd be 20% of people are dungeon masters, but it's actually way, way less than that. Yeah, it doesn't even out.
It's surprising. I can count on both hands how many DMs I know personally.
Really? I can count on 1, but anyway.
I might have just a little bit more time than you. I think we've discussed this before.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, why don't you get into that? How long have you been DMing?
So GMing? I've been a DM for the past 7 years. I got started shortly after I played my first 2 sessions of 5th edition. And then at my previous DM, James, he couldn't make it for a couple sessions. So I was like, you know what? I had a rough concept. I ran it. And because I said yes to just about everything, it became an absolute shit show. It was a fantastic shit show, but a shit show nonetheless.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something we can get into, too, is player leniency and things like that. But I guess talking about you getting into it, what was could you give a rough outline of your first session that you took seriously and planned out? How did that go? If you can even recall it was probably a while ago.
Yeah, it was. It was summer of whenever I was 18. The very brief synopsis of this campaign was, because it was meant to be a 3-session campaign, was there was this elven king back when I frankly didn't know much about elves. Yeah. So, he was a very atypical, very greedy king who was said to have literal fields of gold on this private island. And the whole party was made up of adventurers heading to this island. Okay. My problem was, right off the bat, was that, most of the party was your pretty atypical group. By the way, this was a party of 8. I should have actually started with that. 8 people to the party. That's
insane.
That is mad. I get overwhelmed at 5 now, and I've been doing this for a while, so... I allowed one of my players to bring in his character from our campaign, which was a level 8 Gloomstalker Ranger. Or whatever that Gloom subclass is. Yeah. One of the players, until last minute, didn't tell me, I'm going to be using a custom class that I didn't tell you about. So I had to quickly look up all the information on that. It was the Blood Hunter that Matt Mercer made a couple years ago. And, so at some point during the adventure, the players find out that this small town within this castle, because it somehow still has inhabitants, is being kind of manipulated. At least their council's being manipulated by a necromancer. He killed the council members, he raised them back up, and it was puppeteering them. My player who was playing the level 8 Gloomstalker, using an AoE spell, wiped out all the thralls, and then proceeded to go into the basement and kill the necromancer in a matter of 5 minutes.
Nice.
And that was supposed to be...
Basically just stomped on your session.
Very much so. I don't think that was his intention, but this was also probably some of my earliest work with stat blocks, and that was... now it's not something I'm super proficient with. I'm getting better, though.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's an easy mistake to make, too, when you're starting out, is... planning out a big fight with enemies or whatever, and then not fact checking it next to your players' character sheets, and then you make it way too easy and they just stomp it out and you're like, well, we still have 3 hours of gameplay to figure out here, so
yeah.
So your first sessions, and this is I feel like is true for a lot of DMs. I would imagine the first ones, like although they can be fun, they're definitely like off the rails and like hard to control, and it's more of just like I don't know. It just feels like an improv session with your friends more than an actual game. Um, at least that's how it was for me anyway.
There's
I'll
certainly a
save
lot.
some of those.
Sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. I was gonna say I'll save like my stories for my early D&D campaigns because they were a complete shit show. But yeah, that's how I feel like that's a pretty common thing. Yeah, for it to go haywire like that pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, of course. Um, Personally, even with my first session being an absolute shit show, you can learn a lot from it. You learn a lot from your failures, and frankly,
Oh yeah.
you get your best work from it. So from that
Oh
one,
yeah.
for example, all players for a new campaign have to be new characters. In my
Yeah.
personal rule set, some people don't mind. That's up to them. Uh,
Oh, and you'll learn quick too. Like when you're starting out as a DM, like you're gonna make a lot of those mistakes that kind of derail your process that you had planned out so like thoroughly.
mhm.
Um, and yeah, you're never gonna forget it. Like those are mistakes that are gonna happen, and you're not gonna make the same mistake again because it really just like can knock the wind out of you almost. Like how like off the rails, not in like a bad way, but like how off the rails things can get.
That actually leads me into another session, which is why I don't use the sidekick rules anymore. So
Okay,
originally I
what do you mean
used
by that?
so in the essentials kit for 5th edition there is a series of rules called sidekicks.
Okay.
These are player characters as an ideal. They're not made the same way. They're a whole different set of stat blocks, but it allows for multiple people, the DM, whomever, to control these pretty bare bones characters. Uh, and I think it was my third session. I had introduced the premise of using this rule set. It was still fairly new to me, but it seemed very intriguing. Um, because nobody kept track of where the elf ranger sidekick was, he ended up getting
Okay.
crushed by a wooden tower.
Nice.
It was just placement wise, like, oh, I guess he's dead now because that was 5 kobolds in a wooden tower all just collapsing on him.
Yeah. Um. Uh. I want to get to. I have some questions that I wanted to ask you because, I don't really have like. There's not many like DMs around that you can like discuss things. I mean, you can talk on like forums online and stuff, but it's not really the same as like shooting it back and forth in person. So I just wanted to throw a couple of things your way. And I guess we kind of like went over this, but I just want to bring it up because it's an easy question and everyone has their own preference. But what is your favorite party size when you're planning a session out? Like, how many people do you like to have in your group playing?
I personally prefer 3 to 4 players, but recently I've also been tinkering with 5. It does
Yeah.
draw out combat just a little bit, but I feel like that size allows for roleplay to be a more feasible option. It's easier to bounce stuff off of each other.
Yeah, you definitely have more options when it comes to things like
In fact, that's something I only
conversation.
discovered recently when we started doing basic. Like, there
Yeah.
are some points during that series of sessions where I feel like I've dropped the ball, like introducing Ren's character. Like, I
Oh,
could have done a better job then, because she was just kind of, boom, there.
I mean, I didn't think it was like jarring or anything. I mean, I think we all kind of understood like how that session was going to go anyway.
Yeah.
Like, we were warned that she was just going to kind of be there, so it didn't feel that bad.
Yeah, but I still feel like I could have done better narratively to introduce her. Whether
Yeah, I
she was already a
suppose so.
patron in the bar or something of the sort. It's the little
Yeah.
things, you know?
Yeah. So yeah, so like 4 to 5 with you is your preferred.
Anywhere from 3 to 5, I think, is a healthy number.
3 to 5, yeah. Honestly, my favorite right now anyway, because I'm playing with my brother, and we're doing a party of 3, which I've never done before. I usually always do 4. I always try to shoot for 4. 'Cause it's just kind of like traditional. But I've been doing 3, and it's honestly a lot of fun. Combat is like very like personal feeling. Like turns come back really quickly. So I don't know. It's pretty cool, but
If you want
I definitely
if you want a shorter session, that's probably your best bet is about 3 people. Not
Yeah,
just in the
that too.
sense of there's only 3 people. There's only so many decisions to make, but at the same time, it just feels more compact. It's a pocket-sized party.
yeah. Yeah, so I also recommend 3 to 5 is like is like the golden rule. Like I would never I mean, you could. I'm sure you could do two, and it would be like a funny little thing. But I don't think you could do like a serious, like long campaign with two people. I feel like they'd get. I don't know. And then if one person doesn't show up, you just can't do it. You know what I mean? But
I've really
and then
wanted to try solo sessions at some point where it's just one-on-one. But at
I
the
did
same
that with
time,
my wife.
it's not a very appealing. Well, to a lot of people, it's not a very appealing idea.
For sure, yeah, you gotta be really comfortable with the player you would pick for that. And I did it with my wife because she wanted to try DMing, so I did it like as a player for her little like thing. It was pretty fun, but you can't really take it that seriously. But anyway, moving off of that, and this is kind of similar to the party size thing, but what kind of like, I'll give you a scenario. So you have a party of 4. What kind of player composition do you like in that party? Like, if you could pick 4 types of people to have in your party for the rest of your life, every time you start a campaign, what kind of people would you want in there?
That's a very.
And by that
question.
I mean like archetypes. Like you got the comedian, you got like the leader who's always trying to get the mission done, and so on.
Well, at a minimum, if it's a 4-player party, you need at least a leader and a follower, because the follower will bounce off the leader when it comes to aspects like roleplay. So at least, so you're guaranteed at any point to at least have half the party into that. I'm very big into the roleplay aspect. I'm not particularly good at it as a player, but I love it when players interact with one another. It makes for a much more entertaining and memorable experience. I also do kind of like, not a rules lawyer, but whatever you would consider a couple chain links down from a rules lawyer. I like someone to be like, yes, that works, but this also works as well. It's in this section here. Because it allows someone to kind of have some oversight if I don't have enough.
Yeah, it is helpful. That's why I liked having you as one of my players. It was helpful having somebody around who understood the rules, like, even better than, because you understand the rules of D&D better than I do for the most part. So it's nice having somebody around who can just like quickly like help out the game in a technical sense. That was really nice.
I mean, just an example. Just before this, we were talking about the Cyberpunk books I sent, and you, I know for certain, will read the books I put out. And you showed that by talking about how boring the mid-sections of Home of the Brave was, which, I mean, love that book. It's probably one of my more read books besides the Chrome books and the core rule book. But at the same time, when it comes to the economics, the military, I don't give a shit. Give me lore.
Yeah, I want to know I want to know the world I'm in, not like the economic state of it. Yeah, but so a follower and a leader for sure. I think that's like a great point. Like a leader, I think is mandatory, and then a follower is very helpful because like you said, you'll always have half the party interacting with something, which is pretty nice. I would call them like a technician is really nice, like somebody who understands the rules and is willing to help people out, like not in like an aggressive way, saying you need to do it this way, but
well, I mean, if it's aggressive, then you get a rules lawyer.
Yeah, then it becomes rules lawyer, and that's no fun. But if you have one other person you could slot in there.
And you know what? I'm going to take your comedian one because I can think of a few times where the session's gotten a little, like, not grim, but dark. Yeah. And just having that little light helps. And you know what's funny? I usually find, at least from my experience, that leaders and comedians almost seem to come hand in hand in the sessions.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. Like, it's usually people who are willing to, like, speak up first or just turn out to be the leader. And then people who like to talk a lot are usually, like, trying to be funny or something. So, yeah, I could see that. And I'm just going to insert a segue here because I don't know how to segue to this, but it's something I wanted to ask you. What is something, and I guess this would be like somebody looking into playing D&D who doesn't really know much about it, or they just know it, like the stereotypes around it, but what is something you wish more people understood about D&D, or more specifically like being a DM and running a game? Like what do you think, what's something you think people like misunderstand about that?
A lot of people really overthink the aspect of being a DM. That's what I think it boils down to.
Yeah, I agree.
So I just wanted more sessions. That was my full incentive for becoming the DM I am now today. I was impatient. I wanted more sessions. Fine. I was writing at the same time, so that kind of helped. If you enjoy writing, if you enjoy creating a story, it's a big benefit. But really, all you have to do, whether you want to use a module, homebrew, whatever, just be like, I'm going to do it. If the principle of being a DM intrigues you, just sit down, do a little bit of work, and then it's all downhill from here. But I don't mean that in a negative aspect. It gains momentum. It perpetually becomes more intriguing.
Yeah. Once you like create something and like it works, and you know you get people together for a game, and you kind of lead like this fun little like bonding session. Yeah, like you definitely get hooked and want to do it again and again. Yeah, and I feel like that is something people misunderstand. That like the DM like has something they don't. Like they have access to something that allows them to be a DM when in reality like it's very simple actually.
Anyone can do it for free with ease. In most systems, give you the means to do so.
Yeah, and that was the first video I made was like how to just start doing DMing because I feel like that is something people don't really understand fully. Like they don't get what a DM even does. They think it's way more complex than it is, and you can make it complex for yourself. Don't get me wrong. Like, I've definitely done that, but it's not necessary. Like if you have 4 people together, you can go from like having nothing to a session ready to play in like 20 minutes, realistically. If you're willing to use like some pre-made content, obviously.
That's how a lot of our basic campaigns went.
Yeah.
I think 2 out of the 3 we had, it was literally just I have maps, I have a rough idea, but I've prepared nothing else, so it's all ad lib from here.
Yeah, and hey, it works. And sometimes those are the best sessions where you just start with nothing and just riff off each other and see where it goes.
It creates a more dynamic, player fueled session.
Yeah. This is somewhat related to that, and I guess this is for somebody who is like struggles with the like the time management and the input it takes sometimes to be a DM. But what are some tricks that you've developed or that you use to make your prep go by faster or make it more enjoyable or easier?
For myself?
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of it's music and podcasts. I'll usually put one on in the background.
Okay.
I occasionally will carry a journal and I'll just take notes throughout the day. A lot of the sessions I'm currently either working on or have played recently started off as like half an idea I wrote down to come back to later. I'm currently working on a session of Cyberpunk Red where the whole thing was I like the premise of what happened in New York, as dark as it is. For those not in the know, whoever's watching this, in the Cyberpunk universe, New York was nuked in the early 90s. And I wanted to map that out. So I made a map. And then I'm like, what if this looked like that? Or that looked like this? And now we have Rotten Apple Gems.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, how you like just jot down little things, like little notes throughout your day whenever you get an idea. Because when I'm at work, I'll get an idea for like a session that might be really cool, or like names of characters or like little backstories. So I'll just like print off little bits of like chit paper that like orders come up on, and I'll just like write them down while I'm on like the line, like in the kitchen, like put them in my pocket. Like my desk is covered in them because like I just don't like throwing them out because they're like little. They have too much sentimental
You never
value,
know which one's just going to become a nugget of gold.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of mind alchemy there.
Yeah, so that'd be like a good tip. And yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, like if you ever have any ideas, like don't be afraid of, just trying everything that comes to mind. Or not even trying it, but just like storing it. Like, yeah, I have so many little things stored that I haven't used. And I'll probably never use, but, it's nice to write things down that come to mind.
It's good for you. That's another benefit of DMing. It's all a hobby of sorts. It's a hobby within a hobby almost. And to have that, it's good for your mental health.
This next one is pretty simple, but what is a really fond memory you have playing D&D that happened to you recently?
Recently?
Yeah, and I'll give you mine as an example, but when we were doing your basic campaign where we were in kind of like this underground bandit camp, and like in a bit like it was an old fort that they took over, we were fighting in like a fighting pit as slaves almost, as like we were their captives, and one of the players climbed up out of the pit on a ladder, and one of the bandits was climbing up after him, and he jumped back down and grabbed him by the neck and RKO'd him back into the pit. And that was a really awesome moment. I thought
that was fantastic.
Went pretty well.
Honestly, the session before that is probably one of my, within like the last year, maybe 2 years, favorite memories. I've
Oh, yeah?
always wanted to do an oops all mimic sort of session. And when we
Yeah.
started messing around with basic, I was like, this is a pristine opportunity to do such a thing because the premise is so goofy. And next thing you know, there's a tavern full of mimics. Actually, the original final enemy of that wasn't going to be a fireplace mimic. That was an afterthought. Originally,
yeah?
I was hoping some of you would end up going to the cabin. I can't speak. To the cabins out back, and then it was
Okay.
going to be a gang of wood stove mimics spitting fire.
Nice.
But
Like a greaser
when no
gang
one
of
went out, I
mimics.
was like, okay, the goat man's going to kill them all.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was cool. That was a fun session. This is my last question, and then we can just kind of just chit chat after that. But it was if you were to give, and I know you're not usually a player, but you have had some experience recently in my campaign as a player. But if you could give advice to any players about how to make your DM like you, what would that be?
Ask questions. There's
Yeah.
actually quite a few to this. So, ask questions. Be supportive and take part as much as you can. When I say that, I mean role play. Don't fudge dice. Be genuine as a player.
Yeah.
Because I have dealt with the negative aspects of that before. Or the adjacent opposite, whatever you want to call it. Really, as long as you're in tune, in the zone, taking part, you're asking questions, you're getting your prep ready. Taking notes is a fantastic and very simple one you can do.
Yeah.
I love it when people take notes. That's why I try to do the same whenever I'm a player.
Mm-hmm.
But really, it's just about attentiveness. I mean, I'm going to sound like a bit of a geriatric here, but staying off your phone really helps.
Yeah, and
Like
yeah, to kind of bounce
I'm
off that.
bad for that too. I will fully admit, but
Yeah. Yeah, but to kind of bounce off that, like, you can definitely, like, as a DM, if you have, like, 4 players or whatever, you can definitely tell, even online when you can't see what they're doing, you can tell who's, like, checked out. Like, just based on, like, how long they've been quiet, how little interaction they're doing. Just, there's a bunch of different gives and, like, tells for it. But, yeah, that's a big one. Even if, like, if you're not, like, really feeling the session, like, there's no shame in, like, dropping out of a campaign just because you're not, like, really into it. But you should at least wait till the session is over. Like, don't check out in the middle of it and not interact.
I mean,
that's just rough for everybody.
One could argue that one of our players in both our circles has, like, done that mid-session. Yeah. I'll just go ahead and say it. Max has done that, but I commend him for that because I can tell that he wasn't having fun, but it wasn't his primary thought. He wasn't in the zone for the game. And so for him to go, you know what, I'm going to take a break, I can respect that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what you got to do sometimes.
At the same time, though, I hope he doesn't give up on DMing because, not that he shared a lot, but
oh, man.
Max is pretty good when it comes to writing, and I would love to see what he comes up with as a DM. Plus, it's another opportunity to be a player. The Forever DM trope is very real. The premise is funny, but at the same time, when you see an opportunity, you take it.
I would love, man, maybe I should make that a series. Like, I don't even know how I would do it or orchestrate it, or even like the scheduling wouldn't even work. But there's so many people that we know that I would just adore to see them do like a self-made, like homebrewed one shot for like some players. Like, could you imagine? Like, obviously Max has talked about doing it, and I would love to see that, and I really hope he goes through with it. But could you imagine like seeing what like Garrett comes up with or something? Like, I feel like it would just be like so interesting.
I feel like
know.
Garrett would be very out of left field, and that would be very interesting.
It'd be like a very funny session, I think. Even if it's not like, even if it doesn't take it that seriously, I feel like just having him as a DM like would be a hilarious session. Now that's not like, I'm not talking smack. Like, I would love to see it.
No, I know exactly what you mean. Not every game of D&D or whatever system has to be serious, and that was our whole intention with Basic. Albeit moving forward, I think it is going to become a bit more serious, but that has more to do with the fact that there's more of a plot, not just you're out in the woods.
For sure. And you can save the funny one-shots for when there's less players or something.
Exactly.
Well, that's basically all the like questions I had written down for you. Is there anything that you'd love to, like, I don't know, just like share with anybody in regards to D&D that's like always on your mind? Like,
Actually, I do have a slight question to you, and it kind of calls back to one of
yeah,
your
for
own.
sure.
In your entire experience as a player of TTRPGs, what is your overall most favorite experience? I know this is a hard question to answer, but
Oh no, it's not actually. I have one that's very memorable. Now this goes way, way back to when I was DMing as like a teenager. Oh, I might have been like 18 or 17, but and it's funny that this is my favorite memory because this is from a group that like has generated a lot of my worst memories because there was like 7 of us and it was just all over the fucking place. People were ordering pizza in the middle of the game, stuff like that.
we've all been there.
But yeah, we all got to start somewhere.
I'm not going to name names, but I have been offered Coke in the middle of a session.
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
as long as
especially
you role
since
play
it didn't
it
connect
as like
to me that's what he was offering, and I was like, what are you on about?
as long as you like role play it as moon sugar or something at the table, I think it's all right. But
no, he didn't say the word, but he made enough hand gestures that I eventually picked up.
But yeah, for sure, my like, and I have a lot of great memories. But my favorite, I think, is I was DMing for my friends. Now the group wasn't full at this point. I think it was just 5 players and me, so it was like kind of nice having a smaller group that day. But I had set up that the party was on the road in these woods, and I think they were like level 2 or something. But they went to this tavern, and it was empty except for the barkeep, who was this gnome, and he was like really stressed out and tired looking, like he hadn't slept in a long time. And they thought it was like kind of weird, but he seemed friendly, so they were like, okay, well, whatever. Like they just chit chatted with him for a while. Like kind of liked him because he was like a bit eccentric and weird. And they ended up going upstairs and sleeping for the night, and they're woken up by like this crashing sound below them in the tavern. And they go down there to find the gnome is gone and the whole interior is destroyed and the doors ripped off the hinges or whatever. Anyway, fast forward a little while into the session, they fought like a witch or something in the woods. They're going to a new town, and they end up stumbling into a werewolf on the road. And half the party saying like, no, like don't kill this werewolf. It could be the gnome. Like we don't know what happened to the gnome. It could be that he turned into a werewolf, and we like that guy, so let's help him. The other party was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why would he like destroy the tavern? They both had like pretty good reasons for like not trusting each other. But anyway, they end up killing the werewolf, and turns out it was the gnome. And it some of the players like they had like brought like a tear to their eye, like realizing like what they've done, like killing their like new favorite NPC.
That is
they
a
had met.
fantastic interaction.
Yeah, and it's like like being able to like have an emotional connection with somebody over. And this was paper and pencil, like theater of the mind D&D. Like this is way back doing that, and that was like a great experience having like that like emotional connection between like players. Like when you're just sitting in a living room, like with pieces of paper in your hand, like that was pretty incredible. That was like that was when I was like completely hooked as a DM. I think that was probably like my first year DMing.
That's fantastic. You gotta love it when this one interaction just gives you so much different mixed signals from the group, so many different emotions.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I love that.
Well, thanks for asking me that. I think that's a great place to end this. If you have any final thoughts or anything before we close it out.
Everyone listening to this, you want to try DMing, literally just go for it. Doesn't matter what system, doesn't matter what rule set. Just make sure you have enough understanding so you can help people build characters, and enough to be like, this is combat. You don't have to have all your spells memorized. You don't have to have all your guns memorized. Whatever you're doing, just go for it. I cannot explain enough how fun it can be.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for coming on, Logan.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
All right. See you later.
See ya.